Hey guys, welcome to the Sports Life Network Soccer Podcast. This is episode 9, and we are going to be talking first today about the Serie A because some pretty interesting things happened today. I'm joined by Amir, Marcus, and Nick, and I'll hand it over to you, Nick, for the Serie A because I know you've got a thing for Atalanta. So let's.
What a thing!
Yeah.
Hear what
Oh,
you have to
yes.
say about
Cheeky
that.
little thing.
They are for me the best team since the restart, at least in Italy. You could argue maybe there are better sides around Europe, but I think they've been absolutely crushing it. They haven't had a game where they've scored less than 2. I mean, the attack is insane. The defense hasn't been as good as it has been over the course of the season since the restart, but the attack is absolutely insane. Obviously the biggest blip was the draw against Juventus, but I mean Gasperini has pulled this side up to second. I mean, they look fantastic. Zapata, Muriel, they're all firing. I think, if he can keep the attack firing for the rest of the season, I mean, there's only a few games left to go. I mean, if they finish second, that's probably one of the biggest achievements in Europe overall this season.
Yeah. You can also mention Malinovsky as well as a midfielder. I think he has 9 goals this season as a midfielder.
Screamers.
All these screamers.
9-goal trait.
Clearly.
Scores long shots.
And also, they've gotten some really good numbers out of Pasalic, who was sort of floating around Chelsea for a long time, being loaned out to different places. But I believe they've secured his services permanently now. Has some great stats coming from midfield. Don't really know what his best position is because he seems to be able to contribute pretty regularly to goals, but seemingly their midfield is very good at picking up on the goal contributions, with obviously Malinovsky being excellent from outside the box, but I believe he can also take set pieces, and we've seen some pretty decent goals from Pasalic, not only in the Serie A, but I believe he scored a very good goal in the Champions League, I want to say.
Yeah, he scored a goal against Shakhtar, which got them into the team.
And, I mean, you can only say so much about how good Atalanta have been, but obviously it needs to be acknowledged that they've now passed Lazio, who were seemingly the only challengers to Juventus's dominance since the restart. But I mean, Atalanta have now passed Inter are ahead of them. Inter won 4-0 against Spal. And seemingly that's another team, Inter, who have found goals coming from other places. They've gotten goals from
Ashley
Breva, Gagliardini. Even Ashley Young has scored. Biraghi has a few goals.
Been good.
And apparently, according to most of what I've heard through the media surrounding Inter Milan, Alexis Sanchez has had quite the return after this restart and contributed very heavily to their attack. So I think that's going to be a move.
Come back, to be honest.
Yeah, that's going to be a move that I think we'll see made permanent this summer. I don't think United will ask for very much.
He has no,
and he's truly found a coach that he's comfortable under and a system where he can actually contribute to goals. So, I mean, Inter have been good. They had one little stumble against Sassuolo, but Atalanta have truly been the best team in Italy since the restart.
Inter's biggest stumble was Inter lost at home to Bologna, and they had a penalty to go 2-0 up.
Yeah,
and they lost the game. They missed the penalty, lost 2-1.
As usual,
crazy.
With that Inter side, the defense is just very, very inconsistent. I mean, they've scored goals all year, but they just concede way too many goals to be competitive with Juventus.
Is Sanchez playing wing back or just as a regular wing?
Winger.
So he basically plays as like a wide forward because they play with 2 strikers. But he's basically just the foil to Lukaku most of the time, which is what Lautaro was doing. But I think Alexis Sanchez is a lot more useful in build up to their system because he runs so much and loves having the ball. So that brings the the actual wing backs into the play, and then you have a guy who you would expect to be poaching a little bit in the box in Lukaku, but seemingly everyone else except for Lukaku is scoring since the restart.
Yeah, I think it's funny that he's not, because I think a lot of these systems that we're seeing, like there's always one guy who kind of does what you call the dirty running, right? So you look around some of the more successful teams in Europe this season. There's one player who I call the no stat all-star. They don't really do much, but a lot of their running and a lot of their positional play is what's important. And you would expect that Sanchez would actually fill in that role, because Lautaro has been doing a lot of that as well. I mean, he's been scoring goals, but a lot of the attack is tried to run through Lukaku. So it's interesting to see that now Sanchez is the one who's actually getting amongst the goals and actually putting up the numbers, because, I mean, like, that's a guy who does a lot of running, like, notoriously throughout his career. So, I don't know. I think it's actually good that Antonio Conte has actually got something out of him, because, to be honest, you looked at the way he was at United. I mean, he was down and out.
Horrible. Yeah.
I think the question mark is, if he's going to stay, is he willing to take a bit of a wage cut? Because I don't think Inter isn't strong enough financially to the point where they could support like the same wages that United could. And they definitely need to strengthen. They've already brought in Ashraf Hakimi. With that's going to be more on the wage bill. You need to be careful that you're not overpaying all these older players. But I think maybe, if you can keep hold of him, get him on a reduced wage, they could be, in a few more pieces, they could be challengers next season.
Yeah, they should be.
But he has 2 years left on his contract, and he gets paid like $25 million a year. And I've heard sources that, like, he's not gonna take a wage cut. So I think he's basically gonna force United to pay half his wages probably to play Inter. Like he's not gonna leave Man United because he wants those wages. But like for Man United, like do Man United need him at all? I don't think they need him like whatsoever.
We probably should look somewhere else for a winger other than Sanchez.
They can go for younger and cheaper options.
So Man United don't need him at all, and he's doing well at Inter. So that's why I think like Inter will pay like a portion of the wages, and then Man United will like pay the rest of it, because
wasn't he at like £500,000 a week?
It's crazy. 25 million. Yeah, so because if Sanchez wants to, he can just sit on the bench for United for 2 more years and just get paid.
Yeah.
So he's not gonna take the wage cut.
I mean, I think the problem with that though is that Alexis Sanchez has always been a player who wants to play.
Yeah,
that's true.
He doesn't just like sitting on the bench.
Massive wage cut though.
Not contributing. I understand it would be a massive wage cut, but like he's 31 now, and I think he probably wants to be playing in these last couple of years before he goes back to Chile or something like that. Like
this is like the end of his athletic prime.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So that way he wants to stay in the Chile national team squad.
He wants to contribute to a team that's winning. He's been in teams ever since Barcelona that have been focused on getting into the European spots, and now that he's at Inter, they could possibly be pushing for a title in Italy, which is the first time since Barcelona he would be doing that. Wasn't the case at Arsenal, wasn't the case at United, and now he could be in a team where he is the perfect hard runner that Conte needs in that team to fill in the gaps that Lukaku is not going to be expected or wanted to do, because he is, he's their main goal threat traditionally. And the addition of Ashraf Hakimi adds so much pace to that side that they didn't have. I mean, really, the only pace in that side they had was in Lukaku and Lautaro, and neither of those players are, blisteringly quick. But Ashraf Hakimi is someone who's going to really change the right side of that team. But Alexis Sanchez, as we know from watching in the Premier League, loves to float off the left. So I think getting him a partner at left back that's going to suit him is going to be something that Conte wants to do. Apparently, Conte has a list of many players that he wants to bring in this summer, and it's just
as high as 9 or 10. Like that's insane.
It doesn't seem financially possible for Inter to do that, regardless of how wealthy their Chinese owners are. It just doesn't seem even realistic in the smallest bit, because they spent so much last summer. They spent so much money on like 7 different players to bring into that team, and they also spent in the winter transfer window. So I think next year is going to be possibly a 3-horse race because Atalanta looks so good and seemingly their side is coached so well. I mean,
Milan could do something, actually. Milan have been amazing in the restart.
I think Milan have a pretty high ceiling with some of the players they've brought in recently, but I mean, right now the teams
Napoli have also done really good. Like you can't really like Napoli could do something as well. They're not favorites.
I just think the teams that are looking the most complete right now in terms of like depth are
Napoli have been better.
Atalanta and Juve, but Juve have such an old squad.
And there are all kinds of scales that are going to happen across the top of Serie A. I mean, it looks like Napoli are looking to let go of SLN, and I mean, losing him is massive. He hasn't played. He's only played like the full 90 once since like January, but that's still a guy who you need in your squad if you're going to be, challenging. So I'm actually going to agree with Seth here in that it all depends on, but I think it kind of depends on the squad turnover, because I think if Inter, if they can get the pieces that Conte wants, not all of them, then he can make something happen. But I mean, they look like they could be losing Lautaro. They look like they could probably be losing Milan Skriniar. And I mean, while they aren't fantastic, players, they are useful for Inter. And I mean, I love Lautaro. I think he's absolutely. I think he could be something special, but it's really hard to say.
Barcelona have been linked to him for a while.
Yeah, just because of how in and out he's been. I'm in terms of form, I'm not sure, but he's produced, like 15 expected goals this season. Like that's a very good return for was he 22?
22.
Yeah, he's young.
So, but I mean, they can fetch a good fee for Lautaro. They can fetch a really good fee for Skriniar. I think if you can get them off the books, maybe Conte can make something happen. It's just a question of, can you make sure that they're not old players on incredibly high wages. But Juventus is going to see some turnover. Atalanta looks like they're not going to lose a lot of players and that they're set for the future. I mean, they got players like Barrow coming through. We'll see how good he is.
Oh, Moussa Barrow is going to Atalanta?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been very good at Bologna. That's actually really good. And I think he can prosper in Atalanta because of how attacking they are.
Yeah.
And Moussa Barrow's that kind of player. I've seen highlights of him. He's insane.
So, I mean, Nick, that point you're making about transfers at the top of Serie A is so important always to how Serie A finishes, because it seems like Juve has always been good at picking up the best defensive talent from teams around them. But also, there are so many players this season in Serie A who could completely change a side. If someone were to go for Jeremy Boga, that's a player who is basically has an unknown amount of potential.
Yeah.
Clearly can score.
Supreme dribbler.
Clearly can score
That's really
goals.
what it is.
Incredible dribbler. You have Kumbola at Hellas Verona, who's a great defender. He could feature in any of those sides really that have those very, very old defenses, such as Napoli or half of Juve's defense is very old. But Inter have Godin on their books. I just think there's some players there that could really make a difference in those teams. And we always see in Serie A players switching between clubs, especially players around the age of 22 to 26. You see them just change clubs every summer. So there could be some savvy deals there for Inter if they want to maybe go for Federico Chiesa, who I know is linked with Manchester United, but Federico Chiesa is probably
he's a supreme talent.
He's probably Italy's most exciting attacking player right now, and they could get him for not very much and have a player who's almost definitely going to give you the output that Lautaro Martinez did, because he's going to have so much more quality around him. Christian Eriksen, Alexis Sanchez, Romelu Lukaku feeding him instead of sort of the gaggle of talent that Fiorentina have had over the last couple of years that doesn't really scream impressive attacking output. I mean, a 35-year-old Franck Ribéry isn't really going to give you the amount of deliveries to you that you want. That
they'll pull a moment out of the hat, but that's about it. You'll get.
They literally escaped relegation last year. They went to the last match day or the second to last match day. Fiorentina, They've been on the decline. They haven't been that good last few years.
No.
But they're still a big club though. But
Yeah, they
but
have
yeah,
a threat.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
a lot
I mean,
about like how much stronger the other teams will be, but I think we have to look at Juve as well because Juve have like almost a problem of like the one superstar problem. You see it a lot in like basketball where you have one player with one contract that you have to get right, and if
yep.
you can't build around them correctly, then it's all just going to crumble. And I've read a lot about Sarri not really. He kind of just decided to cater to Ronaldo rather than bring in his own style and, you know, change things the way he wants to. And Juve's been like dominant this year, but they haven't been like as dominant as they have
Yeah.
before. Obviously, they've stumbled recently. It's kind of hard, you know, to judge that with the restart as well. But you can definitely tell that like they definitely have the, you know, foundations to like turn into something that isn't as strong as like, you know, oh, Juve wins the, you know, Coppa Italia again, Juve wins the league again in just a couple of years. Because some of the contracts they have, I think
I
even
mean, they
like
want to
some
win
of
the
the
Champions
players.
League. They signed
Exactly, yeah.
Ronaldo.
They're
signed
like a
Ronaldo.
Champions League like team, but it doesn't really seem like you'd always like put them in there for Champions League, like in the
Yeah,
finals.
exactly.
Yeah, I think part of that actually comes down to the fact that the mentality of the club, because they brought in Maurizio Sarri, who's a very, very different coach to Max Allegri, very different style, to be more attacking and to win the Champions League. Because I mean, Maurizio Sarri, like that's a guy who plays attacking football, and Allegri was very conservative. I wouldn't necessarily call it defensive, but I would say it was very conservative in the way that they played. And the fact of the matter is that Sarri comes in and he has a philosophy, and it's very hard to implement that when you have Ronaldo and Dybala, simply just because of the way they played. So I think that Sarri kind of decided that he was going to sacrifice his style, just, you know, get, you know, Juve over. And plus, he hasn't had the midfield that he would have liked. I think the midfield balance at Juventus is a complete shambles right now.
Do you think Arthur's going to help?
I think he could, but he doesn't produce the same defensive output that you would probably want of your deepest midfielder. Because I think, you know, he'll probably fill in that Jorginho role, just playing passes around and progressing the ball. So it's a question of, you know, when they're out of possession, how do they operate? The defense will will probably be great. I mean, next season, Demiral will probably be fit, and Demiral is great. De Ligt has actually been he's actually got a lot of flack when he really shouldn't. He's actually been quite good this season. So I think it's dependent on what they can do with the midfield. Can they shift some of the guys that don't fit? They got Khedira still on the books. They've got so many older players. I think maybe among the players who played 1,000 minutes, there are very few who are under 25, and that's Bentancur, De Ligt, those type of guys. So it's a question of how do they turn the squad over? Because I would get rid of probably Matuidi. I would probably get rid of Khedira and bring in some younger midfielders. They've got a lot of younger defenders coming back in. Christian Romero is one of them. Obviously, Demiral will be fit. So yeah, it's can Sarri make his stamp on this squad?
And it just seems as if there are already solutions to their problems in their squad that are players just not either injured or not getting any minutes. Like, it just still confuses me why Bernadeschi is not someone who's getting minutes. It just seems like he's such a pliable player.
He's
and
dropped
yet
off a cliff.
His goal ratio is horrible.
Yeah. I think he should go somewhere else. I think they should sell Bernadeschi because they've been trying to, and I think he should. But I think it's players like Rabiot who strike me.
That's what I was just going to mention.
Rabiot, Ramsey.
Because Rabiot, I think at the beginning of his PSG career, was really electric defensively.
Yep.
He was all over the place defensively, which allowed a player like Marco Verratti to do more of the work he does, moving the ball around. And I see Arthur as a very Marco Verratti type player.
Yeah.
He picks up the ball deep, is a pretty good dribbler, is a great passer, and then the sort of quantity in that midfield I don't understand is Bentancur has so many assists in the league this season, but do you play him as a creative midfielder or
you want him a bit deeper because that's where he's best.
So then, do you play a midfield of Rabiot, Bentancur, and Arthur?
There's not a lot of creativity. There's a lot of ball progression. You'll get the ball into the final third, but then you're putting a lot of the burden on Douglas Costa, Paulo Dybala to be the creative guys and just saying Ronaldo score all the goals, which is what Marcus is saying. Because you're putting everything on one guy to do it. But I think they've got a future if they can turn over the squad right. The Pjanic thing is the first step. Kind of getting him off the books. It's how they turn it over. And I think they're probably in a position to strengthen and shift it along. But for me, I don't think they're the best. They haven't been the best team in Italy for the last couple of years. So, it's dependent on what they can do.
Yeah, they have a lot of weight and wages that they can really, just like get rid of by nature of these being very, highly touted names in the past that teams are going to want to take a risk on just because they're like Matuidi has a lot of name recognition, World Cup winner. Khedira, World Cup winner. A lot of name recognition. Any team in Germany would probably take a risk on a Sami Khedira just because he seems like this steady midfielder. Even though
do they still have Emre Can or not anymore?
No, Emre Can he's officially a Dortmund player.
Oh, he's okay.
But good there.
They just have weight that they can get rid of. They showed how easily they could get rid of Mandzukic. That was it happened in a week. It was he was linked and he was gone.
They got rid of Benatia too. I don't know.
Yeah,
exactly.
Benatia was just no sense to me at the time.
Benatia's
I think still doesn't.
He wanted to leave.
Yeah, I think he still could have gone to a better, a different European club. I was.
He was so good
because at his best, Benatia was probably a top 5 center back in Europe, and that's a hot take. But I mean,
at Roma, he was just unbelievable. And then went to Bayern and was also pretty good at Bayern for that brief period. Won the title, helped them win titles. I just think Serie A right now could really come down to just which clubs are picking across Serie A's lower teams and just finding young players because there's so many young players in Serie A. Oh, and the guy who plays for Parma, the winger, is a Juventus player.
Yeah, Kulusevski. Yep.
Yeah, Kulusevski is a Juventus player. So if they sell Bernardeschi, they have him to come in on the right. So, they have solutions already in their team, as do Inter. Inter have young players, young Italian players who they think very highly of. Esposito, Bastoni, who could come in and help that team. And then they had injury problems with Barella and Sensi, who are also pretty young and could help that team. So I think it's going to come down to looking lower into the league and finding these players who are going to be
a player like Orsolini for Bologna could go to one of the higher teams in the league.
He's had a great season.
And he was a Juventus player.
He was actually.
Yeah.
Wow.
That happens a lot.
That's what he's saying, how fast these names move around. I think it might come down to, and it sounds ridiculous, but whoever picks up Sandro Tonali is going to be in a very, very good position.
Yeah.
Because I think because he's definitely going to move this summer. There's no doubt about it. But
the club financially probably needs the sale.
Yeah, they do.
Because they're going down. They're going
down. Russia, they're not good. But
one thing I was saying, by the way, I accidentally muted myself. I was saying a few minutes ago. What player do you think would suit into Juventus's midfield because they don't have that creative midfielder? What do you think is a player in Europe that would fit into their system as a good
James
attacker?
Maddison.
James Maddison. Wow,
that is a good shout.
English players don't really.
I was gonna say you would never go abroad.
Hey, Ashley Young did.
Some of those English players might actually be willing to take that step.
Because there's been English players who have left recently.
If you offer them high wages, and let's say Aston Villa go down and Jack Grealish is not getting the offers from some of those.
Yeah, Grealish. Yeah.
You need. I think
Juventus, that'd be crazy.
You gotta look for those free 8 type players. Not necessarily a number 10 because Sarri wants a little bit of defensive work out of his midfield. But players who can kind of do a little bit of the defensive work. My automatic first pick would be Emi Buendia, because Emi Buendia is a great
That's a great choice.
Great defender.
But to Juventus though, is he ready for Juventus?
Yes.
And they're already relegated. He is a supreme talent. I cannot stress that enough. I mean, he is a brilliant dribbler. He is a brilliant creator. And he puts up like at least 3 defensive actions a game, which is everything you need. Now, is he?
They wouldn't take the risk on it, or like it wouldn't. I don't think like.
Juventus wouldn't do that because of the name.
Yeah, the name.
They wouldn't poach him off of a relegated side, but that's a smart transfer. Any club that can get a hold of Emi Buendia.
That's Diego Simeone's dream player.
Yeah.
Can play anywhere across the midfield, works very hard, and is more creative than anyone they have right now.
Exactly.
But I just think like top clubs won't go for him. Probably be like a mid-table club that would go for him.
I think he could. I think he can end up.
I think he could go there, but like realistically, he's probably going to end up at
mid-table club. Yeah,
Everton.
We've seen links. We've seen links to play to teams like Liverpool. I've seen Arsenal.
I have seen that.
Having a sniff. I think if
I think it's just a shame though if he goes to Liverpool and then sits on the bench.
Exactly.
Like Minamino just doesn't play.
Well, Minamino wasn't brought in to start. Plus, I mean, I think that's a weird situation, and I think everybody kind of labels him a flop. But I think he's. I mean, it takes a little bit to actually integrate yourself into that Liverpool system, and I think, it's not like you can expect him to do a lot.
He wasn't signed to. He wasn't expected to do anything.
Yeah.
Anyway. He's just backup. That's all.
Yeah,
like for rotation next season.
Sometimes we get kind of caught up in that. I think with signings, like. Because you see a lot of the time, like people are saying, like players like that, they end up being flops. But you got to think, like, what did the club actually sign the player to do?
Rotation.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's something the player tends to know.
But despite that, I think he's played like I don't know how many minutes.
He's played less than 1,000 minutes.
Has he played like over 500? Probably.
I have.
But he doesn't have like any goal contribution, which is why like they're saying he's a flop. But I'd give him one more season.
Yeah, I'd still give him a season.
And
he showed talent.
Sign him $1 million.
All right, that's gonna have to do it for me, lads.
Nick's leaving us.
Move on to Premier League and stuff. But
yeah, appreciate it, Nick.
We'll see ya. All
yeah,
right.
so if we're gonna go to the Premier League, I think we should probably start at the bottom because there's been some decisive moments recently. As I just mentioned like a minute ago, Norwich are already down. They got absolutely demolished by West Ham, a fellow relegation struggler. And a quick shout out to Mikel Antonio for goals against Norwich.
How many goals did he score?
He scored 4 goals in one game.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I thought this was
and that doubled his goals for the season.
Doubled guys in one game.
One game.
But
the
whole season.
Nick just touched on it. Norwich. I'll quickly go over just some of the very valuable sellable assets they have. They have Todd Cantwell.
Yes.
Todd Cantwell. Also a sort of floating 8 type of player.
They need to keep him.
Play in the hole, can play as a winger. I would agree that he probably would do really well with another season in the championship. But if Norwich want to bounce right back up, they probably could do a lot worse than selling some of these players for in excess of 20 million. I mean, you have Max Aarons, who's been linked to Spurs several times. He would go for more than 20 million. Fullbacks are, especially English fullbacks, are so expensive.
Jamal Lewis, 22.
He's 22. Yeah.
He's a young player as well. You have Cantwell, I just mentioned. Buendia, I think, is under 24. There's just so many players there that they could sell. And there's also players that they can afford to keep, which is so helpful to them. They can afford to keep Timo Pukki around. He's going to get you 20 goals in the championship. Yeah. They can afford to keep Lucas Rupp around. There aren't a lot of teams that want Rupp. Duda is one that I don't really understand. I don't know if it's a loan or permanent, but I didn't really understand that move. They needed a defensive midfielder, and they went for basically a second striker, which I didn't understand. I think Andre Duda is a great player. He's scored some goals in the Bundesliga, but I mean, if they can sell him and get some money for him, to me, he just doesn't make sense in that team.
He's
they
25.
just need
I remember.
Yeah, go ahead.
Duda last year. Wait, can you hear me? By the way,
yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Last year, Duda, at the start of the Bundesliga season, he scored like 6 or 7 goals in like 10 games or something. Like he had a very good start. He kind of dropped up after that, but like that's why I remember him from.
Yeah, we've seen worse teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen like worse like teams get promoted, you could say. So they'll definitely do well with like, the parachute payments that you get when you get relegated.
Speaking of promotion too, Leeds United just got promoted today, which is huge.
I'm very excited to see Leeds next year. Leeds versus United, some of the other classic games as well.
Yeah,
it'll be cool. We'll see how
they have such a strong fan base.
I mean, Leeds Sheffield, I believe, is also a bit of a rivalry, and that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Obviously, Leeds have
I just want the fans to be able to come back.
Yeah, I mean, Leeds have a very rich history, but it's been so long since they've been able to make that push in the Premier League. They're finally back, but I mean, they have probably, now that they are technically promoted to the Premier League, they might have already a top 10 manager in the Prem. Like,
yeah,
Bielsa is.
Bielsa.
I mean, Bielsa's a temperamental personality. He's controversial, but if he gets the right players, it's going to be
and like holds on to people like Calvin Phillips.
Exactly. It's gonna be really interesting to see them in the Premier League. I mean, I don't think they're going to go out and spend as much as Aston Villa did, but Marcelo Bielsa is a much better coach than Dean Smith. And
it would be depressing if they went right back down.
Exactly.
That's what we said about Fulham. It was the same thing. We thought,
Fulham didn't have a coach that had, this like pedigree, and they were expected to stay up. Leeds are going to be expected
and
to stay up.
And they bounce around the Prem.
So much money.
I'm saying, but like Leeds, for Leeds, it's been 16 years, and they have like such a big fan base and like rich history. Like
they have to stay up. They have to.
Yeah, it would be like depressing if they went down.
It's just financially disastrous if they don't. But aside from Norwich and aside from Leeds, it's probably a good idea to talk about the other teams that are still not guaranteed safety yet. One of which is Bournemouth, who to me just seem like probably one of the unluckiest one of the unluckiest injury seasons I've ever seen. But also just I don't know if Eddie Howe really is the coach that everyone thought he was, because squad has.
No, I think that's a little unfair. It does seem like the squad has given up a little bit on him. Like
I just think that squad has far too much talent.
But he avoided relegation for like 4 years.
That's what I'm saying. They did pretty well for their first 2 years. I think
very good. But
they've spent more money than people realize.
But people thought Eddie Howe would be like manager of Arsenal. I remember he was heavily linked after Arsene Wenger left.
Yeah, that's just hype. That's a little bit too much hype.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Seth. They did bring in a lot of names. They brought in Wilshere. Who else? I see Jordan Ibe from
Solanke.
Yeah, Solanke from Chelsea. I think they kept around some other people.
Ake's probably their most expensive asset.
I mean,
they have a good team. That's why I feel like the team's given up a little bit.
They even purchased Lewis Cook from Leeds. That was pretty expensive.
Chris Metham cost like 17 million, I think, around that, which is like expensive.
Josh King.
They even Diego Rico was like I think somewhere around 10 million.
And Jefferson Lerma's around. 30.
Lerma was.
They've spent so much money on these players that other teams in the Premier League were looking at. They've brought in these players that other teams in the Prem were looking at, and you look at that Bournemouth squad, and there's goal scorers in that team that haven't scored goals, which I know is probably not down to coaching. That's down to injuries and bad finishing and things like that. But like Callum Wilson just last season was putting up, I think he might have scored in excess of 15 Premier League goals.
Him and Ryan Fraser had so many goal contributions. Like combined,
Ryan Fraser was excellent.
40.
Josh King is a very useful player. And then I look at that Bournemouth squad, and they just, to me, appear so like they appear so dysfunctional. Just the squad doesn't make sense to me. They start in a formation that would lend itself to a lot of wing play and the fullbacks getting involved. And then they have fullbacks that aren't very good at progressing the ball or crossing or other things that you expect from these teams that push their fullbacks high. And they leave their center backs exposed. And despite how good Nathan Ake is, he can't make up for the other three players in his team in his backline not being that good. And then they have Ramsdale, who appears to be a promising young goalie, who concedes a lot of goals because they're unsavable. They're unsavable goals that he's never going to get to. There happens at the back post. Or, and he needs to improve on claiming crosses. I've seen him concede goals from crosses that were definitely his fault, but it's just Bournemouth to me is just like a depressing sinking ship.
Yeah.
And also Aston Villa, they missed out huge on 2 points. They were so close away to Everton. That would have been very, very big, because then they'd be 1 point behind Watford, especially because Watford about to lose right now in 20 minutes. So they'd be 1 point behind. And Watford faced both Man City and Arsenal next.
Oh,
so that was that's a big blow. I mean, okay, who do Aston Villa have? Aston Villa have Arsenal and West Ham. So they'd have to, it's tough because they also have the goal difference. Oh wait, no, hold on. With this loss that Watford are having, it's 3-1. Aston Villa still have a way out. They have to beat West Ham or get a point from
I can't remember a season where I can't remember a season where the last day meant so much. Depending on what happens, obviously the second to last week, the penultimate week, but the last day is going to be insane. The last day is literally going to have
especially
at least
for
4
Champions
games.
League too, and Europa League.
Yeah, it's going to have at least 3 games matter for Champions League, and 4 technically for Champions League and Europa, and then at least one of those games is going to have to matter between Watford,
Leicester versus Man United will matter no matter what. There's no
exactly. Now we know for sure that it will. So
and Arsenal might decide the last 2 relegation spots by themselves. If Arsenal win or lose,
Aston Villa can get a point. I think Aston Villa can do something at home.
And they have some goal difference, like you said, Amir. They're all within 4.
Yeah.
I don't know if this table I'm looking at is live, but Watford is only 4 better than Villa right now. So.
Oh, that's live then. That's live. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And
wow. That's close.
It's just interesting to me that Aston Villa spent so heavily in the transfer window, and Watford seemingly bought absolutely no big name talent. They brought in
Nigel Pearson saved them.
Nigel Pearson righted the ship and might still get relegated. It just seems like Aston Villa going down is going to be so much more destructive to Watford. Or so much more destructive than Watford going down. Because
Watford have been
didn't
for a
spend
while.
that much. They have some very good young players that are coming through that could be. I mean, you should see.
They have top players like Doucouré.
To anyone watching this, just go and look up the players that Watford have on loan, because they have some insane players out on loan. So they're a team that I think will, if they do go down, absolutely annihilate the championship. They have
top 2,
top
3.
They have so much quality, and it's not players that are going to fetch huge prices and that they're going to offload. Craig Dawson is used to playing in the championship. He is a solid defender who's going to
around the Prem
very well. Ben Foster has some of the most appearances.
Ben Foster is so good. I feel so bad watching them lose games.
I mean, it's
Ben Foster's insane.
There's so much quality in that team. Troy Deeney will score goals in the championship. He's done it before. Yeah. Andre Gray is going to get you at least
Danny Welbeck,
10 to 15 goals. Danny Welbeck.
Deulofeu from Everton.
If they go down, Deulofeu, I think, will leave if they go down. Yeah. But they're a team that can keep so many
at Barcelona a couple years ago. He's not going to
he doesn't really want to go to
yes, definitely. But there are players in that team who don't have the name recognition of Deulofeu who will be fine playing in the championship because they know that they'll just bounce right back.
Mm-hmm. Or absolute worst case scenario, they get to playoff final. I think.
Yeah, they'll be top 6.
If they go down, they have such a solid coach if they go down. Nigel Pearson is such a good coach.
Do you know about how their club is linked with like the same ownership as like Granada and Udinese? Do you know about that? Yeah, so like they can have players bounce around back and forth.
Definitely.
With young
and that's they have Watford have a player on loan at Osasuna, who's a left wing back, who is apparently being looked at by some of the bigger clubs in La Liga, but he's on loan at Watford. They could just take him back at the end of the season and have an immediate replacement for Jose Holebas, who's in his 30s now. So, like, they have young players just sort of kicking around that are going to come in and really change that team. But also, they have so much Premier League level quality in that team that I think they will just bounce back. And I hope, because I really like Watford, and I think their coaching in the past 2 years has been absolutely disastrous, and I think they finally have their man in Nigel Pearson, but it would be such a shame to see Aston Villa go down.
But yeah, that draw is horrible. Like,
I mean, if Aston Villa and Watford go down, it's just like you know, it's incredible.
Out of all these teams, I prefer Bournemouth to stay up. So I didn't really mind if Villa or Watford went down, but I guess when you look at it from like
can't go down.
Depth,
they've just spent far too much money. They cannot go down.
Do you know about? What was I gonna say? Oh, no, did you watch the highlights for Everton versus Aston Villa? Any of you?
No, I didn't.
I gotta see that.
So Jack Grealish put a ball on a golden plate for Anwar El Ghazi. It was like 2 yards away, and he could have went for a diving header and scores like an open net. Instead, he went for a shot with his foot. He skied over the bar. But like that was in like around the 80th minute. It would have been 2-0, game secured, and that would have been huge. It would have been huge.
I mean, just to quickly go over that Aston Villa squad, there are players in there who.
So that's it. What I'm trying to say is that's a huge blow.
It's a huge blow. But also, Anwar El Ghazi's done that probably 4 times this season. I mean, like there are players in that team that are underperforming so heavily. Like you can't go from Tammy Abraham to Keenan Davis, who hasn't scored a Premier League goal.
Wesley's like trying to
Wesley
be.
Wasn't that he got injured, but he had 5 goals in 21 starts. Like
Wesley was terrible. He was just a hold up man, and like nothing else to his game.
And Samata hasn't really done much either, and it's just like Aston Villa
signed him in January because they needed a striker, and they've
spent so much money on players that haven't done anything. Whereas you look at Watford, and they haven't spent that much money, and the money they have spent has been on players who have been pretty good for them.
Well, Nick, Seth, you want to talk about money, though? We're looking at West Ham. West Ham's only like 4 points away from being relegated. They were like
West Ham have spent huge.
They've gone so close. The new stadium alone, like imagine if they had gotten relegated with a stadium that can hold 50,000 people, 60,000 people. That would be
just to name a few players who easily could have been competing at a Europa League or level, level or higher. Yeah, Seb Haller, they spent a lot of money on. He's at least a Europa League level player. Pablo Fornals is at least at a Europa League level.
He was at Villarreal.
Former. Felipe Anderson, you just said. Lanzini is at least a Europa League level player. I mean, Issa Diop is probably also a Europa League level player. They're, to me, in that West Ham squad, if they go down, they could lose half that squad. Half that squad could leave West Ham if they go down. That's how disastrous this season could be.
But Felipe Anderson has been trashed this season. Last season he was pretty good.
He's been trashed. He's been trash, Amir, but teams want Felipe Anderson.
But they'll still take him because they know he's on
they know how good he can be.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, to me, that West Ham team going down, they're going to lose half their squad.
They're not going to go down now, though, with that big win.
Yeah, now I think they'll
be If Aston Villa go down, who are in a similar situation financially to West Ham, if they go down, they'll probably keep a lot of their players, but I don't think they're just going to bounce right back up. I mean, that squad.
No, West Ham, it would have been way more disastrous for them to get relegated because
exactly.
They're
and
way richer.
This win against Watford is absolutely massive.
Mm-hmm.
So to finish up, I guess we could just talk about
There's still we haven't talked about the Champions League
The
spots.
Champions League spots, yeah.
Yeah, and then we can just wrap.
There's many things that could happen. I guess I'll start off with this, but obviously it's between Chelsea, Man United, and Leicester. There's so many possibilities of all three. But one thing that could happen, Liverpool have been off form, but they could they're at home and it's quarantine stuff. But I think they'll at least get a point. They'll probably beat Chelsea because Chelsea have lost against Sheffield and who else they lose against? They lost against another mediocre team. Let me check again. They lost against West Ham. They lost against West Ham and Sheffield. Yeah. So if they lose against Liverpool and at home to Wolves, they can easily snatch a point there. Wolves, because that's not an easy win by any stretch of the imagination. Playing at home to Chelsea are playing at the Stamford Bridge that game, but let's say they draw that, they'd be at 64 points to end the season off. And then if Man United beat West Ham, which they most likely will, Man United and Leicester could just shake hands on a Leicester win, and then they both be in the Champions League. if Chelsea lose to Liverpool and draw at the Wolves. But what I'm saying is Chelsea could easily drop out. Leicester could easily drop out because they're facing Spurs away, which is
that's a battle of two teams on the decline. So we'll really see what happens. Yeah.
But I'd say it's probably a 10% chance Leicester win that. It'll be ginormous.
10% chance? You think Leicester is the underdog against Tottenham? Well, I would probably say other way around.
All right, sure. It'll be closer than that. But we can both agree.
Both teams have been bad since the restart.
Exactly, yeah.
But it'll be a huge win for Leicester if they get that. That would be such a huge win.
I think it's important, Amir, to note that I just looked at it now. United's playing right before Liverpool-Chelsea on Wednesday. So Chelsea will know. Right. Chelsea will know. On Wednesday in the Premier League, they're playing West Ham at 1 p.m. and then 2 hours later, Liverpool-Chelsea starts. So Chelsea will actually have that motivation if
Chelsea will know.
United tie or lose again, then they'll really have some motivation to go.
But West Ham are now very. They're not secured relegation. I guess. They're not secured. Sorry.
I don't know about West Ham. West Ham's, motive or desperation. Hopefully.
Well, if they get battered, they actually kind of in trouble. If they get smashed because of goal difference. So they will have to go to Old Trafford to do something.
This season's crazy.
I would just say, out of the three teams that we're talking about here, Leicester City need Champions League the least. They
were in the most comfortable position before the break.
I understand they were in a comfortable position, but nobody expected them to be there at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody said, Leicester, you're going to finish top 3. Nobody said that. Also, Leicester have not spent as much money as Chelsea and United. Despite the fact that Chelsea had a transfer ban, Leicester have bought players in a very smart way.
If they finished 7th, that's
and they have several sellable assets. If they want to just regress into being a team that comfortably sits around the Europa League with a very talented young squad, they can absolutely do that. United cannot afford to do that, and neither can Chelsea. Chelsea have just brought in 2 players who need to be playing Champions League football. Hakim Ziyech is not going to settle for the Europa League. I understand that he's an Ajax player, but he had a much higher ceiling than the Eredivisie. He needs to be playing Champions League. Timo Werner is a top 10 striker in the world. You cannot be playing Europa League with Timo Werner. Plus, you have Christian Pulisic, who's used to playing in the Champions League with Dortmund. You have a player who is a absolute Champions League, he's just a class act in Mateo Kovacic. He just waltzes around the Champions League. He is someone who needs to be in the Champions League. Conte is too good. Conte is too good to be in the Europa League.
Conte has to be in the Champions League, yeah.
It's like that season that Chelsea was in the Europa League and they ended up winning. To me, it just seemed so strange to see them face Arsenal. It was just so strange to see those teams in the Europa League.
What, Chelsea last year? But Man United can win Europa League and get into Champions League that way.
And I understand that United can win Europa League, but Manchester United haven't signed anyone yet. These players that they're linked to are going to want Champions League.
Yeah, that's always the biggest thing for United.
These players are not going to come if United don't get Champions League. Sancho's not going to come if they don't get Champions League. He'll just go to a different team or stay at Dortmund. Dortmund finished second in the Bundesliga. They have Champions League. Automatically, they are in the group stage.
Mm-hmm.
There are so
Yeah,
many
Sancho
players
will
that
not wanna
United
go.
are linked to who will not move to them unless they finish in the Champions League. Leicester have an incredible crop of young players that are going to serve them for several years as long as they can keep that group together. And they are a few pieces away from being a consistent Champions League team. But they don't need to be. Leicester are not this global brand. They're not this
not yet.
massive
One thing,
mega club. They aren't, and they never will be.
But look, this is what kind of you like want the most, because you want Man United to get into the Champions League, since like you're a Man United fan. But like, if I speak from the perspective of Leicester, like the position they were in before lockdown was crazy, and even like a little bit before that too. They were like 10 points. I don't know what the specifics were, but it would be a huge choke, and like it would be massive for Leicester to get into the Champions League. Like, yeah, they don't need it, but like that just like the thought of it's insane. Leicester back in the Champions League again. Like they were in it before because they won the league.
It probably stretched them more than it would Chelsea and United as well to successfully.
If they make Champions League, that's just going to hurt them in the league.
And also, it would.
If they don't make Champions League, it's not like the fans are going to burn pictures of their owners.
Yeah, if they make Europa League, that's like a plus for them.
The fans have had in the last 5 years have had a league title, a Champions League round of 16 game.
No, quarterfinal.
Sevilla.
It's like even those fans are on cloud.
I see what you're saying now.
Yeah, the difference is always that for United and Chelsea, Europa League is like an embarrassment basically coming fifth.
It's just not good enough.
And then for Leicester, it's like a great, ceiling, a great accomplishment. Also, and Europa League's more their talent anyway.
Leicester haven't been in Europa League either since the Champions League season. They haven't even been in the Europa League. Like they just missed out the last couple of seasons. So like that would be good for them to be in the Europa League.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They haven't been in it. I see what you're saying, but they're still gonna want that, and they're still gonna like They might devastate Man United. They might like make both you guys like cry.
It's too close. I can't like even be excited because we
at least it's in your hands though.
It is in our hands, but especially if you think about just like the things that have happened in the last 2 games, like United draw against Southampton with basically what I would describe as the worst case scenario. You sub out a left back because he's injured, bring on another left back who also gets injured, and then you concede a goal in the 97th minute to draw against a team who you should be beating comfortably.
Wait. Did we not have another sub, by the way?
There was another sub, but you only have 3 opportunities to make all 5 subs.
Wait, what do you mean you only have 3?
You get 3 chances to make all 5 subs.
You'd have to make 2 subs.
We already had subbed three times. You can't do it 4 times, despite the fact that there could have been another player.
I did not know that rule. That's why I was wondering why we didn't make another sub.
So what I'm saying is it's at no fault of the management that we don't bring on a player there. But it is at fault to United not being able to control games against bad teams.
Yeah.
They still can't do it. Despite the fact that they score a lot of goals against bad teams, they just don't control
close out in distance at the end.
Exactly. The only teams we've seen them do that against are Brighton. And, we conceded 2 goals against Bournemouth. To me, it just seems like Chelsea are going to be so motivated to win these last 2 games. And now that Liverpool can't get to the 100 points mark, there's just no reason for them to try that hard against Chelsea. And Chelsea have a good squad. I mean, like despite the fact that they haven't been able to go into the transfer window very much, they have a good squad. And Leicester also have a good squad. And if we don't have a left back, if we don't have a left back for the last 2 games, and we're playing Timothy Fosu-Mensah, who admittedly is a pretty good defender, but hasn't played Premier League football in a long time, I just don't see the end of this season going very well. And yes, it's in their hands, but like it is not beyond Manchester United to absolutely screw up against.
That's the problem. This is going to be a tough watch come Wednesday.
That last game is just going to be so huge.
Yeah, I'm going to be at work watching that one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. It's really
But,
it's just up to United to
exactly,
win those
yeah.
games. Same
It's
with
gonna
Chelsea,
come,
basically.
and you never know. I mean, Chelsea could just collapse, or United could,
I was
or
thinking
Leicester
that
could collapse. Just, you
Liverpool
never know.
might sit like their first team as well, right? Like
No,
they might
they
sit
should
some of
go
their
on
players.
vacation early. That's what I'm thinking. They should just go on vacation now because they're not in any competition. They're out of
Yeah, like you were talking about Minamino, like he might just play over, like Salah or Mane. It's because, like you
They
said,
have
there's
nothing
nothing.
to
I
play
think
for.
Salah is still in the Golden Boot race, so I think Salah
okay.
will probably still get played.
All right, but maybe not Mane or maybe some of their
Yeah,
defenders.
Mane got benched a couple
Yeah.
times for that exact reason. But I think that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely covered
La Liga.
the outcomes.
La Liga.
We'll talk about La Liga next time. So Nick
Yeah,
can
we'll definitely talk about
it,
La Liga next
yeah.
time. Because the season should be wrapped up by then. For
one more match day.
For all of the European spots as well as relegation by next week. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about that next time. But yeah, I mean that wraps it up for episode 9 of the Sports Life Net Soccer Podcast. Thanks for watching. I've been Seth.
See you guys.
I'll see you guys later. Subscribe, leave a like, and we'll see you next time.